Shadow Slave. By Guiltythree. Chapter 1207, First Night. On the way to the ruin, Sunny stumbled on a human. It was the first survivor of the Battle of the Black Skull that he saw in the desert. Sadly, the man was already dead. His body lay on the white sand, staring at the merciless azure sky with glassy eyes. Sunny vaguely recognized him as one of Clan Song's Ascended. They had never spoken to each other before, but he recalled seeing the men during the battle against the Titanic Horde. Back in East Antarctica, the Ascended's memory armor had dissipated after its master's death, so the body was only covered by a torn bodysuit. There were several wounds in view, but none of them were serious enough to doom a master. It was unclear what had brought upon the man's death. Maybe there was severe internal damage, or maybe it was simply the heat that had killed him. With a sigh, Sunny jumped off Nightmare, kneeled, and closed the man's eyes. There was not much more he could do, so he just remained motionless for a few moments, then climbed back into the saddle and continued on his way. His mood was somber. In the end, the sun had almost disappeared beyond the dunes by the time Sunny reached the large ruin. Scared by the prospect of remaining in the open after dark, he hurriedly dismissed his shadow and climbed over the weathered black stones. He quickly found a narrow fissure in the sand-covered floor and squeezed through it, eventually reaching an underground chamber. Near the end of the narrow crawlway, the stones shifted under his weight, and Sunny fell down in an avalanche of sand. He landed awkwardly and was about to let out a relieved sigh when something cold touched his neck. A steel blade. A hoarse voice resounded from above. "What do we have here?" Sunny carefully put his fingers on the blade of an enchanted glaive and slowly pushed it away from his skin. "Can you not? I really don't want to have my head cut off." Again. There was a moment of silence, and then a soft gasp. "Sunny." Looking up, he saw a curious scene. The underground chamber was not very large, and there were two beautiful women hiding inside. Both of them were bruised and battered, with grim expressions on their enticing faces. One of them was Jet, and the other one was Song Saishan. Soul Reaper was closer to the hole he had fallen from, so she had lashed out with her glaive on instinct. "Yeah, it's me. Say. Why are you two sitting here in complete darkness?" Jet retracted her weapon, took a step back, and tiredly lowered herself onto the cold stones. A stifled scoff escaped from her lips. "We weren't sure if the light would attract danger." She remained silent for a moment, and then said, "I'm really glad that you're alive." Sunny sat up, brushed the sand of the Shroud of Dusk, and summoned a luminous memory. The two women grimaced, shielding their eyes from the bright light. Now that he could see colors better, he judged that they were in a worse state than he had initially thought. Jet's armor was torn rather severely, and Saishan's dress was ripped, as well. Its wine-colored fabric seemed dirted by blood. He coughed, trying not to stare. "Me too." That sounded too sentimental, so Sunny corrected himself. I'm glad to be alive, too. Anyway, the light won't attract the abominations. Most of them are being pulled toward the seeds, and those that are going to rise at night. Well, I guess with the Category 4 gates, some of them will leave for the waking world, as well. The rest will be too busy fighting each other. As long as we're out of sight, we should be safe. He fell silent. Indeed, the true horror of the Nightmare Desert, the dead soldiers that endlessly continued their ancient battle in the darkness, night after night, as they had for thousands of years, had not entered the waking world during the chain of nightmares. That was because most of them were too terrible and powerful to step through Category 3 gates. Now, though. Now, things would be different. Sunny lingered for a few moments, staring at Jet and Saishan. Both were in sorry states, but at least they were alive. He summoned the Endless Spring and said, "I have water, by the way." Their eyes gleamed. "Then give it here." Jet was the first one to snatch the bottle, acting with a terrible lack of decorum. Well, thirst would do that to a person. Saishan, who had been a second too late, stared at her coldly. Nevertheless, she patiently waited for her turn while Soul Reaper greedily drank from the Endless Spring. Once Jet was finished, she let out a delighted sigh and passed the bottle to the daughter of Ki Song. The latter, at least, had enough composure to bow slightly and say thank you before bringing the memory to her parched lips. Sunny watched the scene incredulously. "Weren't the two of you trying to kill each other? I swear I saw you fight. How come you're together?" Jet leaned back and smiled. Yes, we were trying to kill each other. This wench even tried to bite me. Ah, it was really gross. But what does it matter now? Here in the desert, there are no sides. Just us, and the nightmare creatures. So, there was no reason to fight anymore when we stumbled on each other. Saishin gave her a long look. Who are you calling a wench, you corpse? She grimaced, as if nauseated. Wait. Did Saishin try to drink Jet's blood? Ha. It must not have tasted too pleasant, judging by that expression. Of all the people on the battlefield, she just had to go and clash with the only person who countered her aspect. Compared to her, even Sunny's luck seemed wonderful. Saishin lingered for a few moments, then returned the endless spring and gave Sunny a long look. What about you, Sunless? The last I saw of you, Dire Fong was heading to your position. How did you survive? Sunny received the glass bottle and smiled pleasantly. Oh. Actually, I killed him. The two of them stared at him with wide eyes. Right. I received a reward for slaying Dire Fong. I didn't even check. Saishin opened her mouth to say something, but at that moment, they heard a terrifying sound. It came from above, from the sides. From everywhere. The dead were rising to continue their eternal battle. Soon, a distant cacophony of titanic blows and inhuman roars seeped into the chamber through the hole in its roof, and the stones surrounding them vibrated. Streams of sand flowed through the cracks in the black tiles. No one was in the mood to talk after that. They just sat in silence, tense, and waited. Time passed. Then, a different sound reached their ears. Someone, or something, was crawling through the narrow fissure, descending into the underground chamber. Chapter 1208, Newcomer. Instantly, all three of them, Sunny, Jet, and Saishin, were on guard. Jet readied her glaive, while Sunny gripped the hilt of the Sin of Solace tighter. Saishin, meanwhile, lowered her hand slightly, as if preparing to defend herself with bare fists. The cursed sword whispered into Sunny's ear, use them as a shield. Take a step back, and let whatever comes feast on their flesh first. Sunny struggled to ignore it. Before, he had not dared to send his shadows outside to keep an eye on the desert. With how dreadful the creatures populating it at night were, many of them were bound to possess means of destroying intangible things. Sunny did not want to risk one of his shadows being obliterated. But now, he regretted that decision. As his expression hardened, streams of sand fell from above, and then, someone jumped softly on the stone plates of the chamber's floor. Sunny felt immense relief. It was a human. Jet remained on guard, but Saishin seemed to relax. She straightened slightly and let out a soft sigh, her exquisitely beautiful face illuminated by a pale smile. Ascended Sue. You have survived, as well. They were safe. The newcomer was not a terrifying nightmare creature, it was a survivor like the three of them. One of the masters of Clan Song. The man groaned slightly, then shielded his eyes from the bright light of the luminous memory. His hand trembled slightly. Lady Song. Looking at him, Sunny suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. A sense of fear like he had never experienced before wrapped its fingers around his heart. He almost staggered back, but forced himself to remain in place, wearing the same expression as before. What the hell? Sunny stared at the newcomer. The man was tall and muscular. His black hair was cut short, revealing a strong, handsome face. His eyes were like two pools of darkness, and there was a strained smile on his cracked lips. Ascended Sue wielded no weapons and wore no armor. He was dressed in a dark red bodysuit, which was torn, revealing ugly lacerations and bruises covering his body. Oin. It was, without a doubt, the dead man whose eyes Sunny had closed just a few hours ago. Sunny shivered, and even the blurry figure of the Sin of Solace who stood beside him suddenly seemed wary. Saishin took a deep breath. Master Sue. Thank the gods. Have you seen any of my sisters? The man looked around, then said hoarsely, No, my lady. I have not seen anyone. Only you. Is it some kind of regenerative aspect? No, wait. Is it that bastard, Mordred? Sunny stared at the newcomer, studying his every move. Then, he shifted his perception and looked within the newcomer. The blade of the Sin of Solace trembled slightly. Within the body of Master Su, where a radiant soul core should have been. Instead, there was nothing but vile, impenetrable darkness. A darkness so vast and deep that Sunny couldn't even conceive its magnitude. Jet was not in a hurry to lower her glaive. Looking at the creature, she frowned slightly and asked, "How did you survive being outside during the night?" The creature wearing the corpse of Ascended Su looked at her and shivered. "Barely, my lady. Just barely." Then, the creature smiled. "Are there more people nearby?" The question was directed at Jet, so Sunny could remain silent. He shifted slightly, considering their options. "It's a nightmare creature. A nightmare creature that can control a corpse and speak the human language flawlessly. It even knew Saishan's name. It can even perfectly imitate human behavior. If not for Weaver's lineage, I would not have known at all. It is unlike anything I have seen or heard about before, and the creature was strong enough to walk the nightmare desert at night." The three of them were trapped in a small underground chamber with a creature like that. Sunny felt terror. He activated the Blessing of Dusk and sent Jet a mental message, trying to sound calm, "That thing is not human." Jet sighed, then shook her head. "There might be, but we haven't met anyone else. The four of us will have to stick together." At the same time, she answered Sunny, "I know. Its soul is much more vast than a master's soul should be. Or a saint's soul, even. It is harrowing." Then, Sunny sent a message to Saishan. "That is not Ascended Su. Think of an answer, and I will hear it." The beautiful woman did not show any sign of surprise as her answer resounded in his mind. "What are you talking about? I know this man. He and I grew up together." "Wait. Did the son of Anvil take his body?" "Gods. I never thought I would say something like that. But I wish it really was Mordred." Sunny summoned the runes, seeking the prize he had received for slaying Dire Fong. "No. Something else took his body. His dead body. Something old, vast, and powerful. I saw the corpse on the way to the ruin." The creature, meanwhile, seemed a little disappointed. Its smile grew bleak. "Of course. We will stick together. And search for more people. Once the morning comes." "Yes." Sunny stared at a particular string of runes, and then offered the endless spring to the corpse of Ascended Su. Forcing out a smile, he said, "That sounds like a plan. Here. Some water. You must be dying of thirst." The creature accepted the glass bottle with an awkward nod. Yes. Yes. I am thirsty." Sunny smiled as he watched it bring the bottle to the corpse's lips. Then, without changing expression, he silently thrust the Sin of Solace into the creature's chest. At the same time, a blade made of darkness appeared from behind, piercing the dead man's back. Saint escaped from the shadows, her eyes burning with crimson flames. A whirlwind of white sparks rose around Sunny, almost filling the entire chamber. Jet and Saishan were already moving, too. The creature looked at the endless spring, which was disappearing from the corpse's hand, and titled its head a little. "Yes. I am thirsty." Its smile widened into a grin, and Ascended Su's face was distorted by that grin, turning into a wicked parody of what a human face was supposed to look like. The corpse's hands shot up with impossible speed, grabbing the blades of Sunny's and Saint's swords. The pristine white jade of the Sin of Solace seemed to warp under immense pressure. Sunny suddenly felt cold. Not good.